Hello and welcome back for another video. A few months back, I put out my 5 records to get you into shoegaze. That video was an attempt at balancing coverage for shoegaze heavyweights with some lesser known records that are also worth your time. Well, today I'm back with 5 different bands, excited to discuss some classic and lesser known records some you might not have even considered as being shoegaze. So stick around because today we're going to discuss recording till you run out of tape, retiring to restore Porsches, and obtaining inspiration from a prank call comedy duo. This is 5 more records to get you into shoegaze. Shoegaze is a subgenre of indie and alternative rock that is typically defined by its use of heavy guitar effects, soft and ethereal vocals, introspective lyrics, and immersive production techniques. In the same way that punk told people, all you need is 3 chords and an attitude, shoegaze declared, all you need is 3 stomp boxes and a good pout. The name came from guitarists' tendency to look down at their effects pedals during performances, seemingly gazing at their shoes. The shoegaze genre tends to get conflated with dream pop, but despite the overlap, there are some key differences. Dream pop concentrates on creating a dreamy mood and atmosphere with guitars and pop song structures, often with a breathy or warm vocal delivery, and feels a lot cleaner and less busy sounding. Shoegaze places a heavier focus on the wall of noise and the texture of the guitars. The vocals tend to be more obscured, and there's more of an emphasis on creating a dense, layered soundscape. However, at least with one of these albums we're going to discuss today, things aren't always this cut and dry. There's a lot of crossover, and as you'll see from my list, plenty of records that blend shoegaze aesthetics in with other genres. Okay, let's get into it. First record, Catherine Wheel, Ferment. Starting this list off with another band that's been somewhat forgotten to time. Ferment is the debut studio album by UK rock and shoegaze band Catherine Wheel, released in 1992 by Fontana Records. In the quaint English towns of Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft, back in 1990, the band Catherine Wheel was born. Its members, Rob Dickinson, cousin of Iron Maiden singer Bruce Dickinson, Brian Footer, Dave Hawes, and Neil Sims, chose a name that reflected their unique brand of abrasive rock, a fusion of brightness with darkness, akin to a firework and a medieval torture device. Mixing dream pop, neo-psychedelia, and shoegaze, a good half of the songs on their 1992 debut Ferment are classics of the genre. Second song, I Wanna Touch You, announces itself with a big siren of a guitar riff and these layers of feedback. This track is the perfect introduction to Ferment. The insistent melody and that bend in the guitar are just sure to get stuck in your head. Indigo is Blue begins with a flurry of layered distortion, which gives way to a mid-tempo number with a big, uplifting chorus. This sound is not that far off from a few of the numbers off Ride's debut Nowhere, such as Polar Bear or Dreams Burn Down, although the guitar solo at its center is far more informed by the alternative rock and grunge sounds of its time. The band's debut single, Black Metallic, is 7 minutes of romantic grand balladry that ebbs and flows along with a deep, textured guitar drone and wallop careening towards this solo for the ages. All of a sudden, with Dickinson delivering the line, "It's the color of your skin," everything quiets down. The band starts playing like their parents suddenly got home, super dynamically soft and full of psychedelic droning ambience. Dickinson repeats, "Your skin is black metallic" a few times before the final chorus crashes back in. For anyone into Cure songs like From the Edge of the Deep Green Sea and Cut off of their Wish album, this is in that same pocket. Ferment made an immediate impression on the musical press upon release, and the band would score even higher with the release of Crank off their second album, Chrome. Despite this early success, Catherine Wheel's musical journey was like a roller coaster ride of ups and downs through the evolving musical landscape. Throughout their career, Catherine Wheel continued to evolve, gradually transitioning their sound to a more aggressive style influenced by hard rock and metal. These days, frontman Rob Dickinson has taken on a new passion, running a Porsche restoration company, despite fans clamoring for a reunion. Whether they'll return or not, their legacy stands over 5 albums, surviving fluctuating levels of commercial success. They've inspired numerous bands that have name-checked them, such as Interpol and Death Cab for Cutie, all of which began with the big, ambitious tunes on this debut album. This is a 2017 Music on Vinyl reissue. Next record, M83, Dead Cities, Red Seas, and Lost Ghosts. Dead Cities, Red Seas, and Lost Ghosts is the second studio album by the French electronic group M83, released in Europe on the 14th of April 2003 and in North America on the 27th of July 2004. The group formed in Antibes in 1999 and was initially a duo consisting of multi-instrumentalists Nicolas Fromageau and Anthony Gonzalez. Fromageau parted ways shortly after touring Dead Cities, leaving Gonzalez as sole member. He would slowly steer M83's sound in an increasingly synth-pop direction and towards whatever the hell Junk was trying to do. But back in 2003, M83 weren't just interested in creating walls of sound, but entire new worlds, blurring the line between the real and the synthetic. After opening with softly chirping birds, infinite layers of buzzing synths and warped guitars flood the scene. Vocals are manipulated, buried, and scattered throughout. This is not the M83 of Midnight City. Noise takes the eardrum-damaging dissonance of My Bloody Valentine to even greater blissed-out heights. Elsewhere, Run Into Flowers merges the wistful romanticism of Kiss Me era Cure with the trance-like sentimentality of My Bloody Valentine's Sometimes. Gone is the record's emotional climax. It was used to great effect in the show Mr. Robot. Their music supervisor had great taste. Things casually build from a low string drone and these echoed toms pinging around the stereo field, slightly reminiscent of Joy Division's Atmosphere. As the layers of heavy emotional string tracks get layered on, the rhythm propels everything headlong into a scream and these heavy, overdriven pads. This one is instrumental, and all the better for it. The heavy emotion in those synth layers express all you need to understand. This is an original American pressing. First LP. Second LP. And unlike the streaming or CD versions of the record, Side 4 includes the title track, Dead Cities, Red Seas, and Lost Ghosts, which is like an 18-minute track. This is the single for Run Into Flowers. And this is the track 007800 Hours. I just love that same center label on every record. Next record, Deer Hunter, Cryptograms. Okay, so maybe a bit of a controversial pick, but stay with me. Cryptograms is the second album from Atlanta, Georgia-based indie rock group Deer Hunter, released through Cranky on January 29th, 2007. The band was founded by vocalist and guitarist Bradford Cox And following the release of their debut, named after something rude hecklers would yell at them, he asked his childhood friend, Lockett Pund, to join Deer Hunter as a songwriting partner, second guitarist, and occasional lead vocalist. Together with Josh Favre on bass, Colin Mee on guitars, and Moses Archuleta on drums, they began work on their follow-up. After a failed attempt, the band would seek encouragement from group Liars to give the record one more go. This time they would find success, recording their follow-up Cryptograms over 2 separate day-long sessions in the same Atlanta studio as their debut. Cryptograms is an album arranged into 2 halves, with the more experimental, ambient, and shoegaze-sounding tracks up front, and the more psychedelic and pop numbers in the back section. The album opens with an intro of feedback and mangled guitar riffs running headlong into title track Cryptograms. The band pile some heavy, overdriven, and deformed guitar noise over top of a driving post-punk foundation. Just when you think the song has reached its climax, it pushes forward even harder and even noisier. Cox's echoed vocals and the many guitars are virtually indistinguishable as the drums crash everything into an ambient moodscape. That moodscape, entitled White Ink, is 5 minutes of layer upon layer of sparkling guitar clatter and potentially some faint piano accompaniment. It starts serenely enough, but eventually more scattering blasts of echoed jangle get piled over top. Another moodscape, Red Ink, is even more ambient, featuring bright percussion echoes and long drones of Cox's faraway vocals. Being the last song of the first day of recording, Red Ink ends with the sound of the tape spinning off the reel. Octet is, to me, the album's centerpiece. A sprawling 8-minute odyssey of krautrock and shoegaze elements. There's this prominent bass groove that drives the song alongside this shimmering, echoing riff. Over top, the band pile on these layers of looped asymmetric noises until the drums lift off in the second half. Cox delivers his lyrics in a stream of consciousness way throughout much of the album. Here he sings, "I was the corpse that spiraled out into phantom hallways." The imagery of this song was inspired by the cover art of the Grove paperback edition of the Dennis Cooper novel Closer. Original pressing. It's a gatefold, first record. Second record. And again, side D features the Fluorescent Gray EP. Next record, Yazu Conqueror. Conqueror is the second full-length album from Yazu, released on the 20th of February 2008 by Hydra Head Records. Formed in 2003 by Justin Broderick following the breakup of his band Godflesh, Yazu shares its name with the last song on Hymns, the final album of Godflesh's initial run. Despite borrowing the name, this project sees Broderick doing a near 180 at distancing himself from those influential days founding speed metal freaks Napalm Death and industrial forefathers Godflesh. Yazu embraces early 90s production structures and grunge and shoegaze production techniques while still mixing in a healthy blend of the thick metal sludge of his earlier projects. I was initially torn on which Yazu album to cover, his debut from 2004, which I love, or this album, but I consider Conqueror the best realization of what Justin was trying to do with this project. There are 8 tracks on Conqueror, all of them deeply melodic, ploddingly slow, and emotionally melancholic. It's no longer about metal that's punishing, and Justin is actually singing, not screaming, on these songs. The nods to earlier records from My Bloody Valentine and The Catherine Wheel are immediately apparent, but I think there's also an affinity to The Cure's Disintegration. Take album opener, the title track Conqueror, for example. Over its 8-minute runtime, there's a multitude of riffs and counter melodies that intersect and play around the vocals. The first half on its own would have been a worthy album intro, but then the soft piano part signals this explosion of melody and effects, all while there's this thick metal chug underneath. Broderick repeats, "All the colors will always be with us, and all our colors will always be with us," while a rich spectrum of mutated guitar parts interplay. In a 2008 Vice article, the interviewer asked him, "Is synesthesia a real thing? And if so, what color is this mix?" Broderick replied, "Tough question. It's either black or white." Second track, Old Year, adds some classic post-punk vibes to the formula. Sounding like an amped up homage to Joy Division track Day of the Lords, this is another album highlight. Broderick sings, "Now you're stuck in our old year, but I believe in the new year. Now who are you blaming? Are you worth saving?" During the refrain section, there's this distant warbling organ sound, and it's this attention to these tiny details that makes this album such a joy to listen to. Album closer Stand Low opens with some beautiful echoey synth bass before another beautiful melody enters, sounding like a heavily altered Robert Smith riff. Broderick sings, "All the ghosts that haunt us don't scare. We're just too selfish to be that aware." You ever get that feeling when you're so taken aback by a composition that you have to take a silence break afterwards and just sit there with your emotions? That's what I get listening to Stand Low. Original vinyl pressing. Love this pull-out sleeve. So cool. Credits. First record. Second record. Final record for today. Slowdive, Souvlaki. The third pillar of the holy trinity of shoegaze, along with Ride and My Bloody Valentine, who I covered in part 1. Again, torn here. I love their follow-up Pygmalion and feel that that record deserves more attention. The influence Pygmalion had on woozy electronic artists such as M83, Ulrich Schnauz, and Manuel can't be understated. Maybe we'll get there in a future video. Souvlaki is the second studio album by the English rock band Slowdive, released on the 1st of June 1993 by Creation Records. The title comes from a skit by American prank call comedy duo The Jerky Boys, making it the second album release of '93, named after a Jerky Boys skit, right behind Radiohead's Pablo Honey, released 2 months prior. Formed in Reading by childhood friends and musical collaborators Neil Halstead and Rachel Goswell, the band also would include Christian Saville on guitar, Nick Chaplin on bass, and Simon Scott on drums. Slowdive quickly signed to indie darling label Creation Records and released a self-titled EP in 1990, followed by their successful debut, Just for a Day, and garnered plenty of positive attention from Melody Maker and NME. After returning to the UK following a May 1992 tour of the US, Slowdive contacted Brian Eno, of whom Halstead was a big fan, and requested that he produce Souvlaki. Eno at the time was immersed in loads of projects, working with U2 and James, and simply didn't have the time to commit. He declined to produce the record, but offered to work with them on a few sessions, contributing to the tracks Sing and Here She Comes. Souvlaki exhibits a greater attempt to put complex song structure and melody ahead of just crafting Slowdive's infinitely evolving, occasionally thunderous mood music. The album is also a prime example of why the terms shoegaze and dream pop became so synonymous. Souvlaki still features much of that psych-infused feedback and distortion of tracks like Catch the Breeze off of their previous album, but blends it with this hazy, harmony-heavy gothic drama of bands like the Cocteau Twins. Opener Allison is lovely and brittle, at first a deceptively simple composition, sounding not unlike much of Creation Records' vanguard of the time. Neil Hazley sings, "Listen close and don't be stoned. I'll be here in the morning, 'cause I'm just floating," which is just the first of many lyrical and musical references to floating. Eventually, Rachel comes in and the song starts to build towards this profound chorus that's heightened by this searing guitar part, played deep inside the wall of sound the band create. Souvlaki Space Station is the monster centerpiece of the record, and quite different than a lot of the more swoony compositions. The entire track is based around this cyclic 4-note riff that's run through some heavy echo. Besides the main riff, basically everything else, save for the brilliant anchoring bass groove, is also bathed in echo. The band have explained that when it came time to mix this song, they ran the individual stems through a Boss PS2 delay pedal, mixing the results on the fly. Melon Yellow is a deeper cut, buried towards the end of the record, that doesn't get as much attention, but is one of my favorites. It slowly floats in, but over its 4-minute runtime, the tone of the guitars and how the intersecting melodies squeal and then just fade off, only to build again, is magic. I've often heard people describe this record as music that sounds like it's being played underwater. I disagree. I call it music that's fully airborne. The way the tails of reverb of the guitars cycle down while the vocals fade upwards, this is music that glides above the clouds. On Souvlaki, Slowdive successfully accomplished being quiet, moving, and aggressive simultaneously, mixing trance-like beauty with these heavily delayed guitar sounds in music that is relaxing, soothing, and exciting, but most of all, harshly beautiful. This is a Japanese pressing. Doesn't have the obi strip. First record, second record. So that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna link my other shoegaze video where I covered My Bloody Valentine, Ride, and others, as well as the 2014 Beautiful Noise documentary down in the description for those who haven't seen them. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you want to see future shoegaze, post-punk, and more. Have you heard all the records I covered? What do you think of them, and what are 5 records you think people should check out to get into the genre? Let me know down in the comments, as well as if you'd like to see a part 3 to this list, and I'll be sure to cover this classic. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.